Okay, today we're doing our last time. This is just Halacha Beis. And Halacha Beis is the simple part, and it says, we read this last week, that you're allowed to buy eggs from anybody, and you assume that if you buy an egg, it comes from a chicken, and you consider it's kosher. Okay, so based on that, you therefore the extension of that is that you could buy liquid eggs, that is, say eggs that are already cracked. Now, when you buy liquid eggs, there are some Kashrus issues, like kalim issues. That's totally not for us to talk about. When you buy liquid eggs, there's a shiloh about whether you're allowed to buy liquid eggs from Goyim. I mean, this didn't say you're allowed to buy whole eggs. When you're allowed to buy liquid eggs, it's going to be at the end of the simon. We're going to wait to talk about it till then. Whether you're allowed to trust that it's an egg from a kosher bird, if it's from a liquid egg, that's at the end of the simon. But today we're going to talk about, even if you bought it from a yid, is there something wrong? Is there something wrong with b'chal, just have a liquid egg? Is there something wrong with that? Okay, that's today's topic. It's a little different from what we were till now about whether they're kosher or not. That's for today. Okay, so what is the question? The Gemara in Nida says like this. There are 5 things. Okay, like a really strong language. That if you do these things, you're taking your life in your hands, and you're responsible for what happens to you. And 3 of them are if you eat garlic or onions or eggs that were peeled and stayed overnight, then those are among the things that are, if you do them, you're taking your life in your hands. So that sounds pretty serious. Which is just for liquid eggs would mean is they make liquid eggs mean they cracked it one day and I get it in my house, however long later, so they kept it overnight. Okay, the Gemara over there explains, I didn't put it on the screen, the Gemara says that the problem here is it's because of ruach ra, whatever that means. So ruach ra comes onto these foods, and the Gemara says even if it's in a sealed container, it doesn't make no difference. And the Gemara just says one kula, that if you leave some of the peel or the shell or the roots, or the hair, what we call, in it, the garlic and onion, then you're okay. Okay, but the Gemara says basically, if you eat these things left overnight, you're taking your life in your hands. It's dangerous. Okay, so the question we're going to talk about is, okay, so why do we do that? We have you could buy liquid eggs. I don't know if that's seriously a hashgacha, but with other hashgachas, people use them. All kinds of bakers and everybody who works commercially, they don't crack. Almost none of them crack their own eggs. So are you allowed to do that? And if so, why? Okay, so just some examples. For shum kolov, so that would include, potentially from what the Gemara says, garlic powder or garlic cloves, like in a jar of garlic cloves. You now have garlic that's peeled. So the Gemara is saying is you're not allowed to keep that. You're not allowed to eat that if you kept it overnight. Okay, and for onions, we have onion powder and like fried onions like that that people use in their homes. Diced onions like caterers use. They buy pre-cut, pre-peeled and diced onions. How about onions that when you get a fish platter that has just sliced onions in it, just clean with the peppers and everything else. You tell me, and in a salad also. Okay, are you allowed to eat a salad that has onions in it? Okay, I make salad today and I want to eat it tomorrow or for Shabbos. So am I allowed to eat that has onions inside of it? Okay.
Is that raw?
What did you say? I'm going to talk about raw in a second. I'm going to talk about that.
The only thing the Gemara says is okay is if
it has peel or hair.
That's it.
That's the only thing the Gemara says. And the Gemara specifically says if it's in a sealed container, it doesn't help you anything. Okay, that's what the Gemara says. Okay.
I have a peel made by an onion.
Because?
I've got 3 peels to an onion, the Mishnah says.
Got 3 peels to an onion? Okay. Okay.
Okay.
That's not so many. There are not so many people who take off 1 peel to another. I guess in your house you might do that. Okay, but
yeah, you don't get all the peels when it comes to stuff.
You mean it's 3 peels to an onion?
Yeah. Onion, 3
different types of layers. Okay.
No, I take off 1, the other 2 are still there.
Okay. Okay, and for the oops, this one that doesn't work, and for the peeled eggs, so we have hard-boiled eggs. That actually we give hard-boiled eggs, like such a thing, and the caterers use it, and people buy it themselves also, or egg powder, and frozen fried eggs. Okay, which is to say, what is that? What do you make it taste to me? No. That is a place like Dunkin' Donuts. If you go inside and you get an egg sandwich, so they don't make the egg there. They have eggs that are made, fried, and made to the size of a bagel, and they freeze them, and then when you come in, they microwave it, and oh my gosh, you have
fresh?
You have a fresh egg. Okay, so all these things, we have a shiloh. The Gemara says you're not allowed to eat any of these things that are left overnight. All these things were not made today. So Shaila says the Gemara applied to all these things. Okay. So before I tell you what we have to say about this, I want to tell you that this question is something that I worked on. Much of what you can hear today is what I worked on about 20 years ago, and I spent the summer right near. I spent the summer in a place, and the only place to learn was nearby in a Kloisenberger Bismedrish, Bungle Conley, and that Kloisenberger Bungle Conley, we were all excited because the Kloisenberger, as you'll hear, has a lot to say about this. He was in New York. He has a lot to say about it. They were all excited that I was in work with OU, that OU was thinking about the Shaila and considering that maybe they should follow what the Rebbe says. The Rebbe has a lot to say about it. They were not so happy by the end of the summer. But at the beginning of the summer, they were very happy. Anyhow, okay. So this, I'm gonna put our people, the place came into. No, that doesn't work. I forgot that doesn't work. Into 3 groups. Okay. What? 3 baskets? No, we socially distance each other. We're gonna stay separate from each other. No. Okay. So some people say. Some people say that the whole Gemara is not negated nowadays. The whole thing is not negated nowadays. They bring from a place that says in Yuma that the ruachos that he's speaking about over there don't apply, and some that he says a bunch of ruachos don't apply anymore nowadays. So they say this one doesn't either. Okay, now it happens to be that other people tell you that there's Taisus in other places that say certain ruach does apply. Okay, so ruach does apply. But they want to say is that this one doesn't apply, and they say this Gemara that we have, a Gemara here in Nida, that says that this is usher, is not brought in Rambam and Shulchan Aruch. So you see that this one doesn't apply. They bring other ones. The Shulchan Aruch, this is the that brings that you have to watch Negavasa and you have to watch Mayim Achronim. Those are didn't based on Ruach Ra. So you see, it's the ones that we think are still again nowadays, the price can bring down, and these ones it doesn't bring down. Doesn't mention this one. So it's not negate. It's not negate those anymore. Okay. So the other people say, others will say, this is a serious question that the other side has to answer is, well, why Taka doesn't bring price? They want to point to different places where, like the Ramah, there's 2 simanim in Shulchan Aruch that have things about these kind of things. There's one parak in the Rambam, 2 parakim in Shulchan Aruch. One is at the end of Chosh Mishpat, Tav Chav Zayin. The last sim in Chosh Mishpat is things that are dangerous. And also in Yordea, Sim Kuf Tezayin, that the other Ramah says a catch-all, you should avoid everything that's dangerous. Okay? So they say, well, that includes our Gemara. Obviously, the Gemara says it's dangerous, so it includes that. Okay, so that's one. The answers, they have a hard time explaining that. Just like in Yonah D'Yoma, that same Ramah, I'll mention it to you, because it's in Yonah D'Yoma, says, Oy Kasu, this has nothing to do with eggs, Oy Kasu, Sheyesh L'Vroech Min Ha'ir Kishet Dever Be'ir. You should run away when there's a plague. The yesh lates min ear, but chilas hadever v'loy b'sofer. You should go as soon as it starts. Okay, maybe it is. He says he should right when it starts. Don't wait till not till the end. Okay. Anyhow, that's just anyhow. So it's in the same realm. So these people who take this way of looking at it say that the whole thing is not negated nowadays. You could completely ignore it. Okay, who says that? So the Daki Tshuva brings some shitas, some names that you probably never heard of. Kal Chaim says like that also. They point to Yam Shlomo, who in Chulun, who also seems to say like that, and Hagoyis Mordechai, that's printed in the back of the Gemara, past the Mordechai, who says like that. Maybe Magen Avraham says like that, and Rav Osner and Dayan Weiss both say, listen, they're not convinced it's right, but the people who make a yesh l'mal l'smach, there's such this, it's not unreasonable to make like that. So that's one whole group of people, and in fact, Rabbi Schwartz told us that that's what we should do. Okay, so the seriously position is that we completely ignore that chash of the Gemara. We say it's not in the nowadays, and it's open season. You can do whatever you want. Okay, completely pay no attention to the fact that the Gemara said that this is dangerous. Okay, that's how the seriously. Maybe other hashkachos littles.
I think Rabbi Donner was there.
Yeah.
He went around. I know he went with Mashkin. I don't know who he went with. I don't remember who he went with. Okay. Some restaurant said he asked about this.
Yeah.
He told him when I'm acting on it.
Right.
So it's somebody else that I know was with him. You heard what he says? I don't know what they're talking about. Someone for that effect.
Okay. So, but there are lots of people who think like that. People can look at it. Now, the other extreme. That's one extreme. Okay. The other extreme is people who say that it's exactly like the Gemara says. Okay. Who says like that? who says like that? A lot of people who you did hear, okay, the Pri Chodesh and the Marsham and the Beis Shlomo, Shulchan Aruch Harav and the Aruch HaShulchan and the Chavetz Chaim and the Likutei Halachos and the Chakas Yaakov and the Kloiser Rebbe who has lots to say about it. And Ramosha says like that, and then there's a Smak that maybe says this. So a lot of people who say that's usher, just like the Gemara says, and they say it's completely usher. They try to give explanations for why it's not brought in other poskim. Again, the Rambam and Shulchan Aruch bring all kinds of certain things that are awesome from Ruach, right? They don't bring these. It's a little odd. So they try to give answers. Not just strong answers that are so convincing. Okay, but they try to give answers. Okay, and then that's one group. Okay, that
The Rambam does bring things of Ruach.
yes, it's in Parak. Yud Aleph and Yud Beis and Ritzach Shmiras and Nefesh. Okay, he doesn't bring all of them. So they want. What they have talks about that. Why the Rambam? The Shulchan Aruch has more examples. Okay, so this shita. Okay, this shita is most connected to Chassidus Hashgacha. Okay, they who tend to be the ones who most strongly say. The Gemara says you're not allowed to do it. You're not allowed to do it. So well, don't play games with me. Okay, we'll see that they have ways to try to get around it, but they basically say like the Gemara.
I think Ruach Rosh in the Gemara that we don't do. It's Chuliyama we don't do.
So you actually fortunately that's not wrong. Okay, I don't remember. I think there are examples of things that we don't do. I don't remember. But if it's
That's only health things that we don't do.
right, right. But no, this is a Ruach Rosh stuff. So the Taisus is about a Gemara in Be'er. That actually I forgot to mention that Taisus in Shabbos and Be'er who says that there is Ruach Rosh. Not the basis brings the Taisus without that line, like But okay, whatever. It's shy. Okay, now then there's the middle shita. Okay, there's like a middle-ish shita. Okay, and they say, and that middle shita says, yes, the Gemara is again. Okay, yes, the Gemara is again, but there are these very significant kulas to it that, for all intents and purposes, it's not going to apply. You'll hear in a second.
Sorry. So according to the Masmach Shita, if I put a little bit of garlic powder in a chicken.
I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to get to they have something that they think are modosa. I'm not going to say nothing else. Okay.
Yeah, but you got it. And it might.
Okay. So I have to tell you, and I mentioned to you. Okay. So this middle sheet. Okay. This is middle sheet. Okay. And that middle sheet is what many American hashkachas, the national hashkachas, follow. Okay. So he said Rabbi Dunner was here and couldn't believe that anybody would do things like that. But many that follow this middle sheet, which I'm going to explain to you in a second. Okay. And this middle sheet comes from Ramosha and Rabbi Vadia. They say very similar things.
Is it Rosh Hashanah forbidden just like a work camp?
No, I told you that he says the Gemara is negay nowadays. He doesn't hold it like the green side, like that. It's completely not negay. He holds that the Gemara is true. When I told the people who hold the Gemara, Afuke, the people who say that the whole Gemara is not negay nowadays. Okay? Yes, the Gemara is negay, but he has such a broad kula like this. And so Moshe and Rabbi Vadia both start saying, he says, listen, we don't know what Ruach is. Okay? We have no idea what it is. Okay? Now, that's what they say. The Kloisenberger has lots to say when he thinks Ruach Ra. All the cancer and machlos and all kinds of things come from Ruach Ra. All people are not being machlos and Ruach. He has a lot to say about that. On the bottom, they have his drushes from Shal Shuddas of what he used to say about how horrible it was. On the top is the halacha, you know? Yeah,
the one that came to America.
Yes, okay. Yes. So he has a lot to say about that. Okay, anyhow. So they say, listen, we don't know. He said, we don't know. They say, both of them say, we don't know what Ruach is. So the only thing we need to answer is what the Gemara said. So Rav Vadia says it in a small oifen. He says that we only have to answer things in the form that the Gemara was talking about. Okay? You peeled an egg or garlic or onions. Okay? He said, but what happens if we make egg powder? That's one of the cases he's talking about. You make powdered eggs out of them. Okay? Or you make garlic powder. So that's not the form the Gemara is talking about. So we only answer, we don't know what ruach is. We don't know where it applies. So we only apply it to the things that the Gemara talked about, which are an egg or garlic or onions. But if we have onion powder or we have egg powder, that we don't have to answer.
You already had the ruach and you're taking off the ruach.
No, you peel the onions. You peel the onions and turn the that's in there. You're saying, what if I did it the next day? That's good question. I'm not sure. Okay, let's go. So we're safe on the egg powder. I shouldn't say that we assume that they make on the same day, but you're right. It might not be this. Okay, I think he talks about whether but I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to that. Okay, that's what Rav Vadia says. Rav goes even further than that. Okay, Rav is the same idea, which is we only going to answer exactly what the Gemara says, but he takes it like a whole step past that. And he says is the only answer is if you do it the way they did in times of the Gemara. What would be the case? Ravina's wife, what did she do when she had, what was the thing that she would avoid? Okay, what they would avoid then was you peel an onion, and then today, and you're going to use it tomorrow. Okay, you're going to you crack an egg, and then instead of using it, you peel an egg. Instead of using the egg today, instead of using the egg today, instead of using the egg today, we're going to use it for Shabbos. We're going to have it for Shabbos. Okay, he says, but the Gemara wasn't talking about. There was no such mitzvahs for them to peel an egg and use it in 3 weeks from now. No such thing that they would use it in such a long amount of time. There's no such possibility they could do that. And therefore, the Gemara, we only have to answer exactly what the Gemara said. The Gemara said a case like that. But if you go commercially and you crack eggs and you make liquid eggs that someone's going to use in 2 weeks from now, that's not the case of the Gemara. So he says, I know what you're going to ask me. I know you're going to ask me. You're going to say to me, hey, if you can't keep it over one night, Kol Shekin that you can't keep it over 10 nights or 20 nights. He says, Kol Shekin. He says, the whole idea to say Kol Shekin, it's a Kal V'chomer, means you understand what you're talking about. And you say, this is more chomer than this. And therefore, if you can't do this, you for sure can't do that. He says, that means because you understand what you're talking about. He says, we don't know what we're talking about. We don't know what Ruach is. So maybe 1 day is okay, it's no good, and 20 days is okay.
That's just it's not just a play, it's how you have.
Right.
You can't muster it over 1 day.
Right. So
muster in one wedding. Like a choice, exactly.
No, it's not like a choice. No, by a choice we say 8 minutes. No, that's not.
I know, but it's like a cash.
No.
I know the look is inherent.
No.
It's a cash.
One semen, you know what I mean?
No, I don't know what you mean.
There's a Rash out there by Chazir that he has 1 semen of Kashrus.
Okay.
And Silver access. So, the short things that don't have any simon.
Okay.
And they say, I eat the same Einan Shemadin, the text is that it doesn't have 2 simon, it doesn't have 1.
It's from the first one. So you see, the first day you left it over, so Ramesha looks, it's more like the way the guy's plan was, he's leaving for a long time. It's just a good question, I don't know the answer.
Maybe he hopes the company's process, the company is through a whole different process. That process, I don't know, even more than you around.
Okay, so that leads us to a question like this. If we want to take what Ramesha said and say we're going to allow liquid eggs or frozen eggs or things like that, that's very different from what's going on in what they did 1,000 years ago. That means to crack eggs, to have liquid eggs and keep them pasteurize them and keep them for many weeks, that's not anything they have been. And Ramesha's case is to apply that case. But what happens if the guy makes hard-boiled eggs? Okay? What happens if we have stuff on 2 companies that I know, they make hard-boiled eggs. Those people, what do they do? They're not doing anything different than I make hard-boiled eggs. They're making hard-boiled eggs, peeling them and putting them into a bag, and then keeping them for a few days until the caterer wants to serve them. Okay, so did Ramesha mean to be making about that case also? Because they're not doing anything different than I do in my house. They just they cook a lot of hard-boiled eggs and peel them and put them into bags. Or you make diced onions. They make diced onions. They take onions, they chop them up, and then they just sell them to the caterer.
I know, but everybody else, they actually sell peeled hard-boiled eggs with the OU.
Well, correct. So the question is, did Ramesha mean to be making on those cases also? Ramesha said that the mako, so if you say made for egg powder, that's made a whole different thing. And then Ramesha said, that kind of thing is not what the Gemara had in mind. But what about our hard-boiled eggs? There's nothing different about them than the hard-boiled eggs made for 1 day. They just have to keep them for many days. So the Ramesha mean to be made because the plan was to keep it for many days, obviously, because they don't make it to be used in that day. So it's so that's not like the Gemara says. Or they have to do different. The Ramesha didn't say hard-boiled eggs. You know? So the
only person himself in his house can say, I'm going to leave it for
Okay, so it's a question whether the Ramesha is making on that. What seemingly the case of Ramesha for sure should not be making on that is the vegetable platters. Okay, when you go to a bris, if you go to a bris today, if you went to a bris today and they had a platter with vegetables on it that has sliced onions in them, they made it yesterday. They slice up the onions, put them onto a platter exactly like they did in times of the Gemara, and then serve this one by the bris. So it's hard to see how Ramesha could apply to that case. Okay, of all the cases, if you want to say that the hard-boiled eggs, they made it today to be used in weeks from now, okay, at least you could say maybe Ramesha applies to that. But the guy makes the vegetable platter. How are you going to say Ramesha for that case? Well, he did exactly what they did in times of the Gemara. He made a vegetable platter, he made it yesterday, and I eat it today. So it's hard to see how Ramesha could apply to that case. Okay?
I said, what are the The mice would have
So the CRC says, we don't care. We can, I don't know. I don't understand how they do. I don't understand how they.
When did the night start anyway?
So I was going to say this. The Klassenberg says it has to be a mamash full night, like Lena's night. Mamash full night, it's a kula. One of his schools, they have to be a full night. Okay, so if they did it late enough in the afternoon, they could be okay. But that would mean, it's to say the hashgacha would have to be enforcing the rule and say, when you make these platters, don't cut the onions until whatever. Let's say they make a pizza shop, okay, has a salad bar. So when they cut up the onions, they cut up onions and then they use them tomorrow. They just sit there and then you take your tomatoes and your cucumber in there. They all just sit each in their own bowl. So they didn't do anything different than you do in your house. That's much exactly. So what Ramesh should be make about that case? So the CRC, we can completely ignore it. We say we don't think about the whole issue altogether. The hashgachas that follow Moshe, are they mocked? I don't think that they're mocked. These cases seem like the case that Moshe should not allow. Okay, there's all kinds of other cases we can justify. Say onion powder, he'll be make of that. And fried onions, he'll be make of that. But just nice onions in a pizza shop, it's hard to see that he could make of that case. Okay. So now, within the people who are most machmer, the people on the right side, the people who are most machmer, I'm gonna mention to you three different possibilities or ways or thoughts about how you could be makel. And that's like this. A lot of people say that the only answer is when the food is by itself. Okay, you have a peeled garlic and you leave it overnight. But if you mix it with other stuff, you put eggs into a cake recipe, into a cake, then you don't have to worry about that. Because right now, I don't have eggs that stayed overnight. I have cake that stayed overnight. Okay, or I make a salad, or I make a soup. So those things, the onion or the garlic that's in there, it's part of this bigger food. Now it's soup. It's not garlic or it's not onion, and therefore I'm allowed to keep it overnight.
Salad is a little harder than air, right?
Because.
Piece of onion, my salad.
Right. Okay. So you could look at it either way. Most people who talk about this say those kind of things are fine. Okay. But the shayla is exactly what does it mean, or how much is considered to be a mixture? Okay. So the Klassenberg says that to say that's considered a mixture means it has to be that the other things are affect the tam. Okay. So I make a salad. So you say there's all kinds of things together. So now I'm not tasting just onion. I taste lots of things together, or I put it to soup or cake. So these times I taste the whole thing together. Okay. So but he said, but let's say for example, when you make liquid eggs, okay, so liquid eggs.
I'm not saying salad.
Because?
I'm cutting up a salad. I have a piece of onion in it. It's not bottles, it's not topples, or nothing. I have a piece of salad in there. It's like, if I had any other isser in it, it wouldn't lose its identity. Right?
No, but you look at it.
They're not. The Gemara is. This if it'll make you feel then a little bit like Ramesh said, which is the Gemara said don't leave onions overnight. There's not onion anymore. This is now part of a bigger thing.
Okay? It's an onion. Every other halacha is an onion. Every other isser will be in it. It's an onion.
You look at it.
It's different than it's true. That's what I'm saying. We don't know how it works.
Okay, so it's on a brisk platter. I see it. It's a platter. It's a platter.
Okay, here we go. Okay, so I looked at a liquid egg package, and it has in it something called sodium phosphate. Okay, it's a preservative. Okay, it helps. It's a preservative. So according to the Klassenberg, that's not going to do the trick. Okay, it's not nice and tam. Obviously, it doesn't affect the tam. So the liquid eggs, the fact that you put in there's some sodium phosphate is not going to do anything like that. It doesn't help anything. Okay, Rabelsky thought that the Klassenberg was correct. That it can't just be anything added in. It's got to be something that is significant. But he said it shouldn't have to do with tam. He says, why are we picking on that should be nice and tam? He said, just have to have some effect. The other thing has to have been some effect on this food. It can't just be in, like there are people who will say, we can't make eggs and leave them overnight, so they put in a drop of salt. Okay, they have the big vat of 1,000 gallons of eggs. We put in two pieces of salt, and we say, okay, it's not egg, now it's eggs with other stuff. Okay, so he didn't buy that, but it has to be something that had an effect. So he was good with the fact that he's making a commercial, but besides so sodium phosphate. If we put in the sodium phosphate in it, that makes a difference to make it a preservative. That's good enough to make it happen. And you think the hard-boiled eggs also?
Sure.
What's in the hard-boiled eggs?
Citric acid. They also have to last for.
Do you think that's also to help preserve it as a preservative? Okay, so if it's true, okay, you're right. There is citric acid. If it's there to affect the thing because it makes it last longer, if it is okay, if that's true, if that taka has that effect, then good. Then Rabelsky would make again. The Klassenberg did not. He said it has to be nice and town. He said Rabelsky, in theory, yes, he's correct. That it has to do something. It has to be. It can't just be something silly, something minuscule. He says, but he didn't think it had to be nice and town. He thought it just had to be. Have some kind of effect. So he was good with the sodium phosphate, that kind of thing. Okay, next is, the Gemara says is, I told you the Gemara says, I didn't put the words on, but I told you the Gemara says is that if you leave some of the peel or some of what the Gemara calls the hair, the roots, the hair, on an onion or garlic, then it's mutter. Now the words of the Gemara are, shir behen ikron ad klipasim, less than ba. Okay? If you leave on it, it's ikron, the roots, the hairs that come out of it, the little roots that come out of it, or the klipa, the peel, then it's mutter. Okay? So the Klausenberger says, the Gemara uses the word shir behem, you left in them. He says it means dafka that you left them. Meaning when you cut your onion, you didn't peel it first and then cut it. You cut the onion and you left peel onto it, or you left hairs onto it. He says, but putting it back in afterwards is not going to make it mutter. You have to leave it in from the beginning. It has to be shir behem. Okay? And lots of other people bring that to the smack.
You put it back, you put it in.
Yeah, in other words, think about it. I want to make onion powder. Okay, I want to make onion powder that should be good for me who doesn't want to keep onion overnight. So the company makes onion powder, and before the night is over, the mashgiach throws in this one piece of peel. I says, good, I put in, the peel is still in there.
It has to be on.
No. So wait. So the Klausenberger says, yeah, shear, it has to be still on. And other than from the smack that it's not true, the smack says you could put it back in. You can always put it in. You could put it in a piece, and then you're good. So they say, I can make garlic powder. All I have to do is just put in a piece of, before the day's over, or before the night's over, put in a piece of garlic peel, and I'm good. Okay, a piece of...
It has to be for that onion.
Are you putting garlic powder or garlic cloves?
Cloves, I think.
So the cloves don't have... Okay,
They have a peel on them.
They don't have any roots.
The roots are on the bigger piece. So if you leave root on that, well, eggs will still never... No, you can pull over a few cloves this way and leave the rest of it together. But you can peel off
Or
Could have been garlic, yeah.
The cloves.
Or you could make it that morning. Could you keep it that morning? Okay, so that's true. If it has a peel, so it's good.
Even if not the peel of the garlic.
She made klipas, right? She said klipas, that's the peel. Okay.
What about the stuff that goes out of the top of the onion or the top of it?
That's not the hair. That's not the root. They want to use ikron, the roots, okay? It's the roots. Okay, Rabelski thought, in this case, Klausenberger was correct, that you have to shear, but even though, again, a lot of people bring the smack who says that you could put it in afterwards, he thought, like Klausenberger, that you have to shear. Smack, it's in mitzvah, kuf, samach, ches. I could show it to you later if you want. Okay, the last question is whether this is the Gemara, what Doug mentioned before, is the Gemara talking about specifically if it was raw or cooked or both. Okay, so on this, there are people, on every sheet that you want, there's someone who thinks like that. Okay? So the Takichu brings from the Sefer called Yad Meir that most of us never heard of, that's only for cooked eggs. Okay? And one of the riots, only for cooked eggs. Okay? And one of the riots, what? Right, and one of the riots, one of the riots that they bring is that the Gemara says is that if you peel it, okay, well you can't peel raw egg. I mean you could, but realistically you would say you broke the egg, okay? You can't peel eggs. So he says that's a riot that's only for liquid, only for cooked eggs, okay? So he says this, which we probably never heard of, but Chaf B'Sakim and Rav Osir also say that it only applies to cooked eggs. Okay. Then on the opposite side, of course, there's someone on the other side who says it only applies to raw eggs, not to cooked eggs. Okay, it's only for cooked. Okay, and the Klausenberger says in between. Okay, this I have to read because I don't remember what he says. He says if you cook it after it's peeled, if you cook it after it's peeled, I mean you crack the egg, and then you cook it like you make the Dunkin' Donuts, frozen eggs, then that's fine. But if you cook it and then you peel it afterwards, and then you leave it overnight, then you can't do it. You missed it. Okay. They're eggs like when you buy an egg sandwich. Those eggs are made as fried eggs and then frozen. And then when you ask for the sandwich, they microwave it and stick it in there. Okay, so they kept it overnight. Okay, and then a whole bunch of people I have Rav Osir here twice. A number of people, Rav Osir and Ravadia and some other people, Marsham, say they're not sure. Which one is it? Is it raw or is it peeled? And Rabelski says, the Pasha doesn't need both of them. Okay, both of them would be awesome. Again, he's going to follow Ramesh anyhow, so he's good. I forgot to mention to you, I should have mentioned this. I keep telling you, Rabelski said we should be machmir, but be make according to Ramesh. According to what Ramesh says, that big cooler Ramesh said. Rav Shechter, I forgot to mention this, said that he thought that in din it's mutter. And before I tell you at the end of the sentence, I have to tell you that a lot of the tshuvas who speak about this start off the same way. Everybody is makel about this, or everybody is machmir about this. Okay, whichever neighborhood you come from, they say everybody is either makel or machmir, and therefore this is the reason why. Okay, each shuvah starts off like that. Of course you makel. No one does this, or everybody does this. Pasha that everybody does it. So everyone, from just depending on which town you came from, depends on whether you think it's pasha that it's mutter or pasha that it's asur. So Rav Shachta said that no, it's machmir. Nobody, but I'm saying Rav Shachta, but really everybody says every person who writes about this is like, to them it's pasha that you basically whatever their mother did. Okay, to them it's pasha that you do whatever. So Shachta said that he thought it was in din that it was mutter. He said, but he thought that when you give hashgacha to the whole tzibur, and there's people out there who are makbid, they should be makbid. But he said, hey, but Rebelsky said we should follow Rav Moshe, and then that sort of made him happy, even though the Chassidim were not happy with that. They didn't buy what Rav Moshe said. But that's what it was.
What's that slice mixed in?